We are sitting here at Whisky Festival North Netherlands with Tom.
Hello, sir.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, not bad, not bad. How are you?
I'm doing fine. We're surrounded by whiskey, so it's always a good start. But
Absolutely.
tell me, like, I've had the opportunity to meet you, but for the people at home who don't know you, who are you and where do you actually work? Because that's a quite interesting story, right?
Well, I hope so. That depends on your own judgment. But yeah, my name's Tom Roskams. I work for Claxton's. We're an independent bottler based in the Lowlands. Okay. Just north of Dumfries, where we have all our maturation warehouses and all of our bottling work goes on. And yeah, we are essentially a producer of quite a wide range of different ranges. We have a few examples up front here. And, for us, I guess, we come from a background of whiskey enthusiasm. Passionate about whiskey, always have been. Our families have always been whiskey collectors, cask collectors. Okay. And, Claxton's ultimately emerged from that passion to collect whiskey.
And how long have you been working with this passion?
Well, dedication to whiskey is a lifelong thing, I guess. But no, as a business, eventually we decided once we'd collected enough whiskey that we should take the steps forward to set up as an independent bottler. For me, that journey started slightly more recently, but originally Claxton's was founded about 10 years ago. Okay. And we've been bottling for about 7 years now, 6 or 7 years.
7 years. We're going to talk about all the different ranges and all the different flavors, but I don't like talking about whiskey without anything to drink.
Sounds good to me.
We got a nice bottle, and you can tell me a little bit about it, and then we dive into what it is to be an independent bottler, because some people might know or some people might have heard of it, but I want to hear the ins and outs. But what are we drinking here?
So we're looking at a 12-year-old Tormore here, which is in the Speyside region. And it's part of our exploration series. Okay. So the exploration series is really designed to help people do exactly that, explore new whiskies. And that's all done really at a sort of accessible price point. So we bottle everything at 50%, still high strength. Yes. Perhaps not always cask strength, but very high strength. Okay. And we work with a wide range of different cask types. Okay. So this particular Tormore is in a bourbon barrel. Okay. But we also work with, obviously, Oloroso, PX, rum casks, brandy casks, red wine casks, and also a huge diversity of different cask sizes as well. So right from your sort of blood tub and octave sizes up to, your classic puncheons and sherry butts and everything in between. So something that I've seen quite often within the exploration story, like quarter casks. Yep. But maybe we're going from all the way, but just... I will ask you to pour us a glass. Let's pour a dram. Because this is always why I like to ask Yorkshiremen to pour me a dram. Lunch. Cheers. Oh, it smells surprisingly for like 50%. I wouldn't have guessed it. Quite floral, I think. Grassy. Yeah. Lots of apples. But it's from the Tormore distillery. Exactly. I never heard about this distillery. Is it something that you do often, putting maybe lesser known distilleries or distilleries that often get lost in blends? Do you also bottle those? Or are you going for the big names? It's an absolute mix. And our goal is to bottle the widest diversity that we can. And particularly the exploration series, it's an opportunity for people, including ourselves, to try whiskey from different distilleries with interesting profiles that they may not have tried before. So, of course we bottle your sort of well-known distilleries and really strong brands out in the industry, but, lesser known distilleries as well and brands as well. So Tormore is an example, or Dalrymple's, different lesser-known distilleries are certainly part of our goal. Yeah. But talk me through it, like independent bottler, what does that mean? What does it involve? For us, it involves working with the wood and maturing the stock, really. That's the key thing. So we do everything but distill the spirit. Okay. And for us, the maturation program is the kind of key focus on what we do. So we buy in everything from new make, up to really high age, old vintage casks. Okay. And for us, it's about selecting the best examples of each individual spirit type, distillery, but also cask type and profile, and selecting the best example that we can. Well, what I'm wondering, for example, let's say that I had a distillery and I will be producing 500 casks a year, and there will be one cask where I'm like, oh, this is so incredible. It's such a good example of what I'm trying to put out. Why would I sell it to you? Well, if you've created that yourself, they'll probably bottle that themselves. Yeah, exactly. But I think, as I say, that look, every distillery is obviously producing their own product. But there's always excess production, and there always has been in the industry, and all the distilleries trade with each other, and
Definitely, yeah.
you know, we're part of the process of trading casks and working with casks, and we take those casks on really to mature them in our own warehouses and take them in the direction that we want to take that spirit in.
Okay, so it's you actually put hands on and you actually work with the spirit. So it's not only not buying only a cask and just putting it in a bottle and.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
And how do you
not.
make these decisions? Because like I can imagine like you can say it's gut feeling.
Well, wouldn't it be brilliant if there was a sort of mathematical logarithm to these things? But no, such a thing doesn't exist. It's a team consensus. Everyone contributes in our team. The warehouse manager Martin Burnett, my partner Adrian Hoos, all of the warehousing staff, the bottling team, they all contribute to the selection process essentially to add their little bit of expertise and philosophy and their own ideas and input to make sure that we get, you know, a supportive consensus on
so
these
before
things.
this actually the liquid hits the bottle, how many people have been given notes or have been giving their advice? Like how many people are hands-on working with this?
I would say the vast majority of our team. We're not a big team. Don't get me
okay,
wrong.
okay,
We're you know, I don't know. We're sort of between 12 and 15 people. So we're quite a small team still, but we all get involved. You know, and the guys who are working with the casks on a daily basis are the ones who really kind of keep an eye on the stock and make sure that, you know, they get the fantastic job, more than I do, of
sampling.
Quality checking, you know, quality control is an essential part of the process, and what's not to love, you know, on quality control, and it's absolutely essential. Yeah.
To be honest, right, Tom, this is something you might gonna bust, but I've heard rumors about your warehouse, about like on the roofs. No,
Snipers,
and gun turrets.
360-degree surveillance. Yeah.
For the people at home, we had a quick laugh about this yesterday. But like, you guys have like how many casks currently do you roughly have in stock?
Of course, the number is always changing, going up and down. It's a guess. I mean, it depends on the cask sizes as well. But I would estimate we have somewhere around 2,000 casks.
Oh, wow.
Something of that sort of magnitude.
And to be honest, like we have a few different bottles in front of us because like I want to quickly talk through them. Like we talked about the exploration series.
Yep.
Focus on exploring new whiskies.
Yep.
What I was wondering, you said like you bottle at 50%, but what if we like Angel Share, decrease in alcohol volume? What happens when it gets below the 50%? Do you also bottle it at exploration series, or is it then immediately?
These are a few examples of the brands that we work with. So we have other Claxton's brands in our range.
Okay.
If we're bottling at pure cask strength, typically an older age statement, but not always, we often end up bottling in the Warehouse Number 1 series.
Okay.
So these are our decanter range, kind of our flagship range, really.
It's a beautiful bottle.
Thank you.
It's such but to be honest, like putting this on a shelf, it's just magnificent to look at. It's beautiful.
That's appreciated. We think they stand out.
Yeah,
you know, they're quite a
definitely.
statement piece. They're not perhaps in keeping with the sort of more traditional bottle style, but we've never been ones to sort of conform to exactly how things were done necessarily. Okay. So we like to be a little bit different and perhaps make a bit of a statement, but also we stand out, and it's a talking point, and that's a good thing. But most importantly, is obviously the liquid in the bottle. Yeah. And with the Warehouse Number 1 and number 8 range, which are both in this style, they're sort of the flagship range at cask strength. No chill filtering, no colorants. It effectively goes straight from the cask into the bottle, exactly as it was in the warehouse. We
got a example like right here. It's from the Tobermory distillery, 26-year-old sherry butt.
Yeah.
It's to be honest, I tried it yesterday. I was extremely surprised, but still, like you said, like the exploration series, it's more about discovering and more being affordable.
Yeah.
This is more something you give your parents at Christmas.
Yeah. Well, perhaps, maybe more sort of gifts and things like that. But, also it really depends on, your affordability. And for us, it's about providing access to as many people as possible with, depending on how deep your pockets are.
Sure.
We want to make sure that everybody can try something from Claxton's. And, that involves having a wide range of prices, I guess. It's as simple as that.
Definitely. And you what is, and now we're getting more a little bit personal because I want to hear it from like you, like what do you think that are like more the pros and cons of being an independent bottler compared to producing itself? Because like, yes, you'll have your opportunities to work around with it and play with it, but you still need to work with the spirit you actually have been given.
Well, there's certainly pros and cons, no doubt about it. Let's start with the cons, I guess. I mean, one of the big cons is, we're not producing our own spirit, so that leads to challenges.
Definitely.
There's always an advantage, I guess, on some level to being able to distill and produce something that is of a particular profile, but ultimately turn the taps on and fill your casks.
Yeah, definitely.
But that said, we are buying in new make spirit that we mature, so as long as we manage that process and manage our supply correctly, then that's okay. The pros, the big pro is the diversity.
Okay.
I mean, we if you're a whiskey fan and a whiskey enthusiast like we all are, we get to work with everything right across the board. I think the distilleries do a fantastic job, but they're perhaps more restricted to a few different profiles based on their distillation setup and capabilities, so they're limited to maybe a smaller number of distillery releases, and that's fine. They're often spectacular, but there's limitations to that.
Okay.
Whereas for us,
the sky's the limit.
Yeah,
basically.
the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. So, and that's what's exciting. If you're into whiskey as a whole, it's an opportunity to work with all the spirits, all the regions, all the cask types, and keeps it fun.
And region, like you guys are situated in the lowlands.
That's right, yeah.
We've been talking about maturation, and maturation is a big deal for you guys.
Yes.
Is maturing a whiskey in the lowlands, does it affect compared to, for example, say like if you would buy a warehouse on an island or on more on top of a mountain or whatever?
That's a huge question, and we could probably do several hours just discussing that point. I mean, look, we're in a stunning location on the Dalswinton estate in the lowlands. We're on the banks of the River Nith, near to the Solway, so we're not too far from the coast. It's an amazing environment, and super clean and in a really nice space. There's no doubt it's a wonderful place to mature whiskey.
Definitely.
Exactly how that influences profile, well, there's huge debate on that. Everybody knows that, and there's lots and lots of variables.
What are some things that influence this? I want to get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, let's get into some nitty-gritty. So certainly temperature is a big thing, and temperature fluctuation will have a big effect. Humidity levels as well, that will affect whether you see more angel share of perhaps the water as opposed to the alcohol content, so that will affect ABV strength. The type of warehouse is a big thing. So we have several different warehouses. We have your sort of traditional style dunnage, stone, earthen floor warehouses.
Just really quickly, for people who might not know or might not have visited a dunnage warehouse, what is a dunnage warehouse?
So a dunnage is typically a very low-lying sort of stone structure that regulates temperature. So you see a lot less temperature fluctuation.
It's more consistent.
Consistent. And then we have sort of old grain stores on site with racking systems.
Okay, yeah.
And then we also have more modern warehousing as well.
Okay.
So I think that provides us with a kind of interesting niche in the sense that we can move stock between those different warehouses and different conditions. So if you've got a less active cask, for example, you might think, well, we need to inject a bit of life into this cask.
Yeah.
So you might move it into the sort of more modern space to kind of experience a bit more temperature movement. It's still Scotland. We're not talking about maturing in India or Australia,
Israel, or whatever.
You might inject a bit more life because of the fluctuation.
Okay.
Whereas, you might have an older vintage, it's lower in ABV, you're looking at a longer maturation program for a certain type of spirit.
You'll put it in a dunnage warehouse.
And you'll be back into the dunnage, and it'll be much slower, more gradual. So you can kind of influence how the cask matures over a different time period.
Is it for me wrong to say that you can, by choosing a warehouse, you can choose what you want to do with the spirits? Like if you I can imagine if you say like, okay, we got a Linkwood on Oloroso quarter casks. If you put something on an Oloroso quarter cask, I can imagine you say like, we want to give it a whack ton of flavors.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can never guarantee the outcome, ever.
Okay.
And there is the wonderful world of whiskey. That's impossible, but of course you can influence, and you can use experience and expertise to guide the process. I think the key for us is we always ensure we've got access to all of our casks, so we're not kind of, stacking huge volumes of casks on top of each other, not able to access them. Yeah. All of our individual casks in our warehouse, they're all accessible individually. Okay. So we can check them all the time at any point in time. Okay. And that's really key for us, because if you're trying to sort of guide the cask in the right direction, you have to be able to, monitor and manage that process, really. So I don't know if that's an ambiguous answer to your question, but certainly you can guide. And certainly you have experience and, a track record and some, you get a feel for what spirit types will work with different casks and what might be a little bit, let's say, adventurous or a little bit risky. Yeah. But you can never guarantee the outcome, and that's kind of the fun. That's what keeps us on our toes, I guess.
I heard once somebody who's more into the blending side of things, less to the maturing side, saying like making a whiskey, like putting together something for in a bottle, it's part science and part magic.
Yeah.
And he said it's closer to magic than to science because there's so much thing we don't know. Yeah. Is it true for you? Is it like sometimes that something completely surprised you, that it totally went the other way? Or is it that you say like we currently are at a point where we know what our warehouses do, what our casks do, what we can expect, and is it more to the science, or is it still big onto the magic?
Great question. Yeah, sure. I mean, there are certain parts of any company process, if you like, if you want to get a bit more sort of process driven that you can kind of control, of course.
Okay.
But, we have a blending lab on site as well where we do much more controlled sort of testing and all sorts of things like that. But, I'm well and truly in the camp of it's more magic than science.
Can you give me an example, like something that surprised you?
Ooh, something that surprised me.
Something like where you're like, I did not know this could happen, like in a whiskey or in a cask.
Yeah, that's a good question as well, so I've got to think about that one. I mean, certainly, I think what's been really interesting for me is working with some of the smaller casks, where particularly quarter casks or the octaves, you can generate a really interesting influence in a slightly shorter time frame, and that can have positive and negative effects, no doubt. I mean, we've had some disasters.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I won't name names because it's not fair on the original distillers, but we've definitely had some disasters, and you have to be frank about that and say, well, that's a test gone wrong, and we're not happy to bottle that. But, unless you experiment a little bit, you're never going to find those little pearls, those little gems.
So it's like, for example, something that went like too much wood or too much...
Overly wooded, overly influenced, the spirit-wood ratio was too high and left for too long, or of course casks can sour, or they go in a direction that you don't expect, so the finished profile might end up with certain characteristics that you just weren't expecting, or you can over influence. Definitely what you don't want to do in our view is sort of mask the original spirit that you're working with. You want to retain some of those
the character of
key
the distillery.
Characters. Yeah, absolutely. That's really important, I think. So it's about balance. But no doubt we've had some successes and failures. With time, we hope a lot more
successes than failures. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the key thing for us is nothing goes into the bottle unless we're 100% happy. Yeah.
There's one more bottle here on my side. It's from Girvan.
Yes.
It is it's a grain whiskey.
Yeah.
More particular, it's a lowland distillery.
Yeah.
And something that I heard from you, like you want to put lowlands back on the map.
100%.
And to be honest, like, talk me through, like, why? Like, we got so much distilleries going on. Why do people need to know more about lowlands?
I think the lowlands has been undervalued for a long, long time, and perhaps it doesn't have the sort of the aesthetics of Islay or the Highlands or Speyside. So, but actually, the lowlands has been a powerhouse for the whiskey industry for many, many years. I think maybe it's been treated more as the sort of industrial backbone of the industry, if we're frank. And
but because there are a lot of grain distilleries there.
There are, and grains obviously form a large component of blends, and blends is still your biggest constituent of the overall industry. But
maybe we really love whiskey, and we go more to the single, even to the single malt, single casks. But I think like the biggest portion is still like blended Scotch.
And grain as well. I mean, I think a single grain is not given the justice it deserves.
Okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think typically single grains are more robust distillates and distillation processes, and typically they require a longer maturation period. But you can still have fantastic single cask grain bottlings. I mean, we've bottled a Girvan, you've mentioned there. Yeah. We've bottled Cambus, Strathclyde, Cameron Bridge, and many, many more. So,
how are you guys like putting lowlands back on the map?
Well, for starters, it's where we're based, and it's where we put all of our time and energy into. So that's a fundamental part of it. But I think also we want to create a bit of a lowland trail, really. Obviously, there are plenty of distilleries setting up as well, independent bottlers like ourselves, and lots of guys who are starting to focus on the lowlands. As a region, I think there'll be a lot more events that we're trying to plan in the near future, which I'll talk about with you in the near future.
Yeah.
But I think it's just working hard to promote what the lowlands can deliver, because it is also a stunning region, particularly along the Solway.
Yeah.
And promoting grain and single grain is part of that process for us. I mean, certainly we think, and I'm a huge fan of single grain. You get that sort of tropical fruits and kind of classic kind of boiled sweet sort of elements and really kind of quite vibrant, complex whiskies if you catch them at the right time. The key thing is bottling something at exactly the right point. Time. And grain and single grain bottlings deliver a huge amount of value for. I take that Girvan. If you wanted a 30-year-old single malt,
it will be expensive.
It'd be super expensive, but that Girvan is much more accessible for people who are, perhaps have a bit less income to spend on a whiskey.
To be honest, like we get to the final bottle here, the Grain Barn. This was literally yesterday, the first day here at the festival. My first dram of the day was this Grain Barn.
Yep.
It's a 30-year-old single grain.
Yes.
It was £95 in the UK, I believe.
Something like that. Yeah. Yep.
So it's like if you want to get a single malt for 30 years, it's.
Well, not possible.
not for under a hunch, no. Definitely not. Yeah. So, but why is it so cheap?
I think it's been undervalued.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be like that forever, actually. I think, people who are switching onto this are realising that actually single grain has a lot to offer, and hopefully we're sort of early to the table in trying to be part of that process. But, as I say, typically, historically, single grain has been sort of a much more robust, often continuous distillation process and more volume orientated and less kind of single cask, small batch, quality driven, I guess.
But still,
But still, you can find some real gems. So, I mean, we've created a really beautiful small scale vatting, actually, in this instance with the Grain Barn, which, we're really very proud of. And we think it brings something to the table that, not many whiskies would, actually. It has unique characteristics, which are, really, really quite interesting. And for a great price. So.
And I want to just maybe annoy you a bit.
Go for it.
I gotta try this.
Hit me.
We normally drink during the podcast episode. We drink it neat. Are there whiskeys where you're like, drinking whiskey neat is perfect, but this you gotta try it a different way? Are there like things where you like we can enjoy a whiskey also in a different type of way? Do you got tips on?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Well, look, absolutely. I would never, and we as a company would never preach to people on how they should have their whiskey. That's the first thing I would say.
Okay.
For me, maybe I'm a bit old school, cask strength, and I'd stick to that. But there's no doubt that, adding a bit of water sometimes can really do some interesting things. I'm thinking back to one of the Ben Nevis bottlings we did.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember Adrian and I sat in a hotel trying to write tasting notes on that bottling, and it took us the best part of an hour to get anywhere with it. In the end, I think we gave up because it was just evolving over time. And, and every time we went back to it, and it was another dram, and like this is changing again, and as you added more water, it also changed. So the evolution of the whiskey was incredible, and they have quite a robust distillation process as well, but also really complex whiskey with lots of different characteristics, and adding some water in that instance definitely brought something to the table. So we're very used to cask strength whiskey, and that's kind of where we lean to, but sometimes maybe I tell myself perhaps I'm missing out on something by not experimenting with each dram.
I see that the doors are slowly getting to open and people are slowly getting in. So I need to get really quickly to the essence. Like I want to know from you if anything was possible. Literally anything. You can say anything. What would you like to put out with Claxtons? Or what would you like to try? Maybe not like you said like an experiment. It can succeed and can fail.
Do you know what? I'm going to get a bit sentimental here, but
go for it.
I think what I'm looking for. There are many things that I'm looking forward to. Many, and lots of things I could talk about. But for me, whiskey is quite a sort of emotional topic in a way. We connect with it in different ways, and everyone has their sort of story and their memories of whiskey and when they were drinking whiskey with pals or family.
Definitely.
And I've got a couple of personal casks that are in the warehouse. It's a Longmorn and a Ben Riach, and they're of the vintage of my two kids.
Oh, okay.
And I guess what I'm looking forward to is when they're 18, bottling them, putting them into bottle, celebrating that moment. And I think between Age and I, actually, we have 5 kids between us, and I think we're quite excited to see them get involved in the company in a few years' time and kind of contribute to things. So,
do you feel like this is the next generation of Claxtons?
I hope so. I mean, I've got no plans to retire, but yeah.
No, but is it something that you actually grow on, that you want to like teach your kids, give them guidance, and then let them continue with all the 6,000 warehouses you're building?
Yeah, but look, absolutely, we want to create a bit of a legacy, I guess. But also, I mean, for us, it's not just about passing that on. It's about us also being part of that process, restoring the bond in the lowlands and continuing to learn ourselves, actually.
Okay.
You know, we don't put ourselves on pedestals. We don't treat ourselves as industry gurus or anything like that. Certainly from my point of view, you know, we're whiskey enthusiasts like everybody at the festival. And, you know, we just have a special opportunity with Claxton's and Al Swinton Bond to continue learning really ourselves, continue exploring good whiskey, enjoying good whiskey with friends. And, you know, that to us is gold dust. You can't buy that, you know?
I think that is a beautiful way to end. There were so many things that we didn't talk about. We're not talked about the gold coins. We're not talked about all the ins and outs. But I think that with this last way, you described it perfectly. For everyone at home who is listening to this, where can they find you? Like, where can they contact you on social medias?
Yeah, we're in on all the social media channels. So Facebook, obviously, and Instagram, and obviously the website.
Claxton's, yeah.
Absolutely. And if you're in the Netherlands, in Holland, our importer is High Spirits. So if you're interested in what we do or interested in some of our bottlings, please get in touch with the guys at High Spirits, Ihab and Jesse and Frans and Hans. Great guys. Really fantastic to work with them, so we really appreciate you guys getting in touch, talking to us, telling us about Claxton's, telling us about what you enjoy. So, and I think the one thing I'd like to say is just thank you, essentially. Thank you to you and thank you to all our followers. For us, we're a small family business, so, you know, every bottle that we sell actually counts, and every bottle that we sell and what we make from that goes back into the business. It goes back into more spirit for more bottlings in the future.
And more casks.
Yeah, absolutely. So we really do appreciate it, genuinely. And,
Tom, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
We'll grab another dram or two or three. We'll see what happens. And to everyone at home, thank you so much for listening and watching this episode. See you on the next one. This was the first episode here from Whisky Festival Noord-Nederland. There are 2 more to come, so keep an eye out. And definitely keep an eye out for Claxton's. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.